And it's awesome to have you on the call, Limor. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Of
So,
course. Thank you, Andrew. And thank you, Dorothy, for organizing all of this and getting us all together.
yeah, well, and specifically, we wanted to chat with you and just have you, you've made a video about the We the Builders project, but just
Hmm.
wanted to kind of chat about that for a minute. And so maybe, I guess, if you just wanted to help explain for anybody that may not know at this point about the We the Builders project, what it is, how it's being done, just a real quick intro for that, and then I'll have a couple questions to ask.
Sure. I mean, hopefully nobody hasn't heard about it because we've been pummeling everybody to please sign up for this project. This project is kind of a fun project. A lot of individuals and maker spaces and schools have 3D printers. And 3D printers are often used by makers to create prototypes or projects. They're part of the maker toolkit. And this project, We the Builders, is to make a large sculpture of Rosie the Riveter, kind of an iconic figure from World War II, of, women doing manufacturing, but also has become a bit of a mentor for women and non-binary makers who have maker spaces and are creating, and they're working together and trying to, of course, make a better world. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring together all of these 3D printer operators. Everybody has access to a 3D printer, and there's a lot of them out there. And instead of having each person make the same thing, each person is going to make a small part of this very large structure. It's like, I think, 2,600 different pieces. And each person can sign up to make one piece in a different skin tone color. And then at the event, everyone's going to get together, or they're going to ship their small piece of the sculpture together, and it's going to be put together into one gigantic, like, mosaic 3D printed sculpture. It's way bigger than any one person could make, but together as a nation of makers, we can make this large and hopefully very beautiful sculpture, and we'll see how everything fits together. I've seen this kind of project done with other shapes, so it always looks really cool at the end when everyone fits together all their little pieces and they make something really big together.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I guess the whole theme of the conference is on this question of intentional inclusion and by extension diversity. And I guess maybe just one question is, like, why would you say that is an important thing for us to both be talking about, be representing with a sculpture like this? Like, why does that matter that we are sort of having that as a focus?
Yeah, actually, one thing I just forgot to mention, I want to call out to the sculptor, Jen Schachter, who just made this beautiful sculpture and is getting, again, pieced up it so everybody can make a small piece. I think that, the whole goal of Nation of Makers is to get this nation, right? We have this beautiful country of all these people with different backgrounds. Some of those backgrounds are not often well represented in the maker community or in media that covers makers or inventors. I think it's important to show that each person, even if they're not an expert, maybe they're a beginner, maybe they come from a background that, isn't traditionally, expected to be an engineer, creator, inventor, that they can be part of this group and they can contribute even a little piece, even if it's helping somebody else or getting together and doing a group project. And I like that, in particular, this project is focusing on getting women and non-binary makers and having a project for them.
Yeah, no, wonderful. And in terms of, like, being a woman in engineering, I guess what ways have you found that it's important to create a space for those stories to be told? Like, how, like, what in some of your past experiences would you call it as, like, of particular value in something like this?
Well, I like to use the phrase from Dean Kamen, "We are what we celebrate." And part of that is what we see is what we do. And when we have people in our community that represent, again, not traditional engineering backgrounds, that is inspiring to the younger generation. They look and they see, oh, that, if this person can become an engineer, if this person can become a maker, if this person is an inventor, I can too. There's nothing that's keeping me from achieving my goal. I think visibility is important. So having that representation is really key. It definitely was important for me as a young kid, and I know now that I'm hopefully mentoring other kids across the country and across the world, I know that they contact me and say, hey, especially the parents, they say, it's great to see that my daughter or my kid can see somebody who looks different, but it looks like what they look like. and is doing the kind of engineering and technology that they're doing. And it does make a difference. Even one experience, one interaction can change a kid's, what they feel is possible for them in this like nation of makers, nation of engineers, nation of scientists and mathematicians.
Yeah, and I guess, in your background, are there specific individuals, mentors that have helped you along the way, and how is that sort of inspiring you to do the same for others?
Yeah, there's people in my past and current and also in the future. Helen Grainer, who was a co-founder of iRobot, she went to MIT and she just like makes these really awesome robots. She also made interactive toys and just such a cool engineer. And just seeing her succeed so well in the engineering that she was doing and also running a company showed me that it was possible to do what I'm doing. Right now, the people I'm inspired by are Micah Scanlime. She's an engineer in San Francisco, and she's doing like really awesome reverse engineering and security work, and she does live streams all the time. Star Simpson, who went to school with me, is making artistic circuits and taking a different approach to circuitry, not just making circuits that work. Of course they work, but making them look very beautiful. Julia Evans is writing zines. For those of us from the 90s who remember magazines, she's doing Unix zines, so teaching people programming and command line and Raspberry Pi using these like beautiful drawings and whimsical characters. And all of these people are taking a different approach to engineering than what's taught in textbooks. And I think that's really cool and makes me want to work a little harder to make my engineering more creative as well.
Well, and I guess on that, you highlighted just some fabulous folks in a number of different disciplines, but why do you think it's important that we like find places and time to celebrate these individuals? Like what is that going to do to positively change or impact the maker movement writ large?
Well, for one, it shows that we do support these kinds of people, these kinds of endeavors. I think I've been in a lot of engineering communities where, the more hardcore your engineering, the more you're supported. The artistic or creative or innovative part of engineering isn't always as celebrated. And so those people are like, well, if I'm not being celebrated, if my work isn't being valued, I'm just going to do something else, right? That's how we act as social beings. So if in the maker communities, we celebrate and support and show that the work that these people are doing and amplify it for other people to see, then people who have those kinds of ideas will realize, okay, my work, my creativity has value, not just, do I fit the textbook example of how engineering must be done. We have so many communities that have their own engineering problems that need to be solved. Assistive tech community, for the example of rolling dice, that's not a project that is in your, physics or engineering 101 textbook, but that's a really useful project for people. And we're not going to know that these projects and problems need to be solved unless we have people in those communities who feel comfortable enough to stand up and say, hey, we really need a way to roll dice for kids who can't pick up dice and roll them because they want to play games with other kids. And that's just one example of a community that I think has gotten a much bigger voice because we're paying attention to the people who are doing that kind of engineering. There's dozens and dozens of other communities that we may not even know yet that in the next couple months, next couple years are going to stand up and say, hey, we need engineering to help us with solving these problems. And hopefully we'll get less, Uber for pizza delivery and more solutions for problems that people have every day. There's not just pizza delivery. We got that solved. There's like tons of pizza delivery apps.
No, absolutely. Well, and I think, kind of on this point, one of the things that when we first messaged out this opportunity for the We the Builders project, the We the Rosies, I think there was a little bit of confusion among like who could participate. And obviously, we wanted everyone to participate in helping print pieces, but there was a specific call out for the videos to be created. And I guess, one thing that I just wanted to kind of highlight on that is, there is a role, for everyone to have a part in the piece of creation of this. But I do think that given just how much emphasis and sort of screen time, certain parts of the community have received traditionally, that it's really valuable to be on the other side of the camera, like hold the camera, and sort of like focus that attention. And I guess maybe just the last thought, if you have any other thoughts on this project and how you would love to see more, more voices sort of celebrated, highlighted, lifted up, even if that means, sometimes those of us, myself included, that have done more talking in the past, spend a little bit more time perhaps listening.
I think it is important. I think, engineers love to hear themselves talk, myself included, and I know it's something that we struggle with, but when we listen to other people's experiences, we're going to get ideas that we never thought of. I mean, all engineers know you have to collect all this information, you have to get as much data as possible before you can synthesize a solution to whatever problem you're trying to engineer. The more information you get from people, the better decisions you're going to be making. So sometimes it's okay to stand back and just say, hey, what are the people, again, like if there's assistive tech that you're trying to design, talk to people who are using assistive tech. They may not be engineers, but they may have insights. They may be able to show you, here's how I solve a problem and I want help with it. So you're not solving problems that don't need to be solved. And again, there's so many people who could be part of this nation of makers who maybe are a little shy. And if you have the stage, if you have people listening to you, it's time to say, hey, let's point out other people who are doing really cool stuff and lift them up and give them a voice and maybe lend them our voices so people can hear them. And I think we're going to get so much more creativity and so much better engineering coming out from the maker community. And, we're going to see the next generation, they've got different problems that they're trying to solve, trying to save the earth. Maybe they, have their own communities and they have situations that they're trying to work on. So I think it is difficult. I think it is fun to kind of keep, making the same solutions to the same problems. But I think it's time for us to listen to the next generation and people who haven't had a voice yet.
Yeah, wonderful. And maybe the last question, because I know you have a number of things going on, and we're grateful for your time joining us on the call today. But so the last question is, what is of the work that we're doing at Nation of Makers, what do you see as one of the most important parts of it? Whether Nation of Makers sort of writ large or the NOMCON conference that's in Santa Fe, what do you think is the most important thing that we can do as a Nation of Makers?
I think the most important thing is elevate others and get them together. It is a nation of makers, right? It's in the name, right? It's the nation of. We have people from rural backgrounds, from urban backgrounds, not just people who live in San Francisco or New York or Chicago, but kids who live in Kansas or kids who live in Texas or kids who live in Florida. And they all want to be part of this great community. And the internet is a great equalizer, but sometimes, as you mentioned before, the loudest voices get amplified. So elevating those voices and connecting all these communities together so that the hacker spaces and maker spaces in San Francisco get to see what the hacker spaces and maker spaces in Dallas, Texas are doing. Maybe they can collaborate a little bit and learn from each other.
Yeah, well, awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking some time to join us this evening on the call. I know all of us are love the work that you do and are super grateful that you just spend as much time and energy doing it and building community around it.
Yay! Okay, so don't forget to 3D print everyone who's calling. If you haven't signed up to take part in We the Makers, We the Rosies, please do. Everyone is welcome. If you have access to a 3D printer, please sign up. I think we need a couple hundred more people to complete the sculpture. We're getting there, but every print helps.
Yes.